Barry does have a lovely English accent.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, hi, and you'll get to hear Barry's English accent too.
Every week.
This is Let's Talk About Dating on Going Solo Media with Christine Baumgartner and Barry Selby. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine. Let's do it
We're
again.
discussing our spring colors. We look like we're headed for Easter.
Yeah.
All those poor people that are snowed in with no water and
boy.
no heat and no electricity. Oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for them.
I've got a lot of friends down there, and it's definitely fingers crossed and hope. Some of my friends who are actually outside of San Antonio are okay right now, but they're concerned because it could head their way. They're not sure. I don't know the geography exactly where in Texas they are, so it's like where it's going to be ultimately from where they're getting hit. So
yeah,
definitely keeping my my fingers crossed and my prayers going for them, because it's not fun.
lots of prayers for the poor people.
Yeah.
And they said on the news that I think it was 65% of the U.S. is under snow, which is just astronomical.
I know. It's like a whole bunch of stuff covered under snow. Of course, it's not obviously one blanket. It's going to be hit and miss along the way, but still, it's just like Florida, California, and maybe New Mexico are not too snowed in right now. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, we're very lucky, and I don't whine about my weather ever anymore right now, because as much as I have to wear my layers because I'm a wuss, I am not complaining because I have heat and electricity and water, and it's not snowy outside.
Right. Yeah, at the moment, I mean, we have our own issues sometimes too, with earthquakes and mudslides and things like that, flooding too. But
rain.
Oh well, the problem with rain in California is because it's like the way Texas has issues with their energy control.
Yeah,
California has issues with its water management down in Southern California because the city's not built for rain. The drains don't work. I mean, I come from England, as you know, obviously, and so we're used to rain, so the drainage system works. So when it rains, the water gets taken away. But where I live, like the streets I live on, the drains hardly work over time. But if it rains more than just a little bit, the streets are flooded for like 4 days. I'm like, So anyway, that's a whole different topic.
We're not good at capturing the rain either, because then we get into a drought. So there you go.
Oh yeah, whole other conversation. Yes.
So back to dating subjects.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love this subject. I always say that, but I do. I must, I love what we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
Waiting for someone to love you is a waste of your time. How poignant is that?
Right.
Because often people say, well, I'll heal my heart when somebody shows up, or somebody will heal my heart when they show up. Or I know I'll be a better person when somebody shows up, or I know that I'll get affirmation that I'm more lovable when somebody shows up. And really, what happens is, if you don't love yourself, pretty much you're going to attract people that don't love you.
That we're definitely diving into that, but some of the other ones, I mean, just some ones I've heard from clients is basically thinking like, that I'm waiting for, the old-fashioned fairy tale one about I'm waiting for my knight to show up and save me. It's like, no. First of all, I have all of the thing you want to. It's like you want to upgrade from knights to kings, not so. Don't do knights anyway.
Yes.
But the thing is, there's this thing about waiting to be saved by somebody energetically.
Yeah.
And the trap we'd fall into. I mean, I did it when I was younger too. It's like, when I find the right woman, I'll feel so much better because then I'll be loved by somebody. It's like, that's the trap.
Yes.
So we'll definitely expand and expose that so we can teach some lessons to people.
Yes, it's truly what a trap it is. And it's so self-limiting. Because first, if you haven't even explored, well, if I think I need rescuing, which is certainly a possibility, you've had a bad childhood or bad relationships or hard things happen to you, you've had a bad breakup, you've had somebody die. Yeah, that has caused wounds. Everybody has wounds. And then what are you going to do about it? How are you going to heal it? How are you going to process it? How are you going to work on it? And not walking around with this gaping wound waiting for somebody else to heal it.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing, and also the other part is you don't really want to make your future prospect into your therapist.
Or your doctor.
Oh God, no.
We don't even want that.
No, it's like, here's the deal. If you're in a relationship and you've got issues going on, talk to one of us too before you dump that load on somebody else.
Yes.
But the other part is also how, in the title it said about waiting for love is a waste of time. Meaning that if you're waiting for love to show up, which could take more than a few days, even if you're on swiping right on all these apps, why not spend that time in a place of love or self-support or other things that make you feel better in the process. You don't want to wait, sitting there going, I feel better when, I'll have what I want when. That whole mindset, it never works.
For anything, when I have money, when I have a house, when I have the right car, when I have the right person.
Exactly.
That's not how it works. That when you are happy with who you are or working on getting happier with who you are, it's amazing how you tend to be happier with what you have, or the things that you'd like more of or different of tend to show up. But it has to always start with you. And people want to keep looking for the fix outside. And it doesn't work that way. And the other thing is, I was thinking, when you have this big gaping wound, the people that you're going to call into that wound are not usually the best people, which is really sad. There are people that have big gaping wounds too, and they're looking for somebody to heal them. And I have mentioned before that my first marriage, I, post-divorce, got so clear about how we were half a people. We both had so many issues. We were really great people. We just had a lot of hard things that we brought to our marriage and just kept banging into each other about it, and there was no grown-up person to heal in this. That we were both so immature, and we were never going to turn into a whole person together, because we needed to be whole people separately first, which we were not at all.
Right. Yeah. And of course that's not something that's taught to, well, it's not taught in schools, it's not taught by the parents, not taught, it's like very few places teach you that you're already whole and complete yourself, and don't teach you how to be remembering that. Because it's like, so let's say, yes, you're already whole and complete, but then you go out in the world and act incomplete, didn't take the lesson to heart. No. And I mean, all of this basically comes under the heading of codependency, because we talked about that before as well. And I've got a video series on it and other things too. And that thing about waiting for love, yes, thank you. So broken people attract broken people. Perfectly phrased, yes. Very appropriate, yes. And dysfunctional people attract dysfunctional people. And and people waiting for love are always looking for people waiting for love. It's that thing. And so it is this thing about really the one is the fairy tale that we're still caught up in, because definitely a lot of people have the fairy tale romance story playing out in their minds, where they would love to have their prince show up, or they'll discover the princess if they're looking, whatever they're looking for in their preference. And there's something that's very artificial about it, because first of all, a fairy tale is always like birds singing, and it's always perfect sunshine, there's never any rain, and the person's perfect in their deep sleep, if it's like Snow White. They're having this whole thing of Sleeping Beauty, excuse me, I'm getting my fairy tales messed up. Sleeping Beauty. It's the understanding is that we keep holding that vision of a fairy tale, it won't generally match reality. No. So even though it sounds wonderful and so romantic, and that's the thing about, I mean, to be honest, many of the romantic movies have this fairy tale quality to them as well. And so they're perpetrating and propagating this idea that it's not going to be work. And that you don't have to be working on yourself whilst you're single. That's a hint, by the way, before that person shows up. A big hint. Just a hint. And then, I've heard people say, well, I've done my work. I've done my work. Good for you. And still, I get these people that want to dump all over me or want me to rescue them. And it keeps happening over and over and over. See, that's the hint. That if it happens one off, okay. If it keeps happening over and over, okay, I agree. You've probably done lots of work. I think you need to work on this. I think you need to work on why. Yeah. Why are you sending out vibes of the rescuer? Why are you sending out vibes of you want somebody that needs you to fix them, to heal them? And so sometimes, if you look at it, you're like, this is when I tell people, this is not the fun conversation to go, well, what could be wrong with me? What could I need to do work on? But you like feeling superior. Could be. Yeah. Like going, look how much work I've done, because wow, compared to them. Those are realistic ways to feel. And if you bring it to the forward and go, oh, I'm feeling that way. Right. You can choose to feel differently and think differently. But first you have to acknowledge, because you're like, well, I don't want to acknowledge that, because what kind of a person's like that? And that just is a horrible thing. And I don't like people like that.
And often if you see people and you're like, wow, I don't like that trait. That trait's really hard. I'm like, well, maybe that is part of you too. That's always could be a hint.
I was going to say that the whole white knight thing. I lived that.
Yeah.
I think I shared before I talked about the car I had and the license plate. So the white knight syndrome, and I call it a syndrome.
Yeah.
Looking back now, I really get clearly how, first of all, it was very dysfunctional. It kept having damsels in distress that needed saving, which was real hard work after a while. Keep doing that wasn't fun. So for the guys, don't do that. Secondly, is that I know that underneath it all, what I was doing, first of all, I didn't feel worthy enough myself. So I had to keep doing the saving to appear worthy.
Yeah.
The wiring was so messed up because I didn't have in my own self at that point, thankfully, this is many years ago, I've done a lot of work since, that I was valid and worthy just for being myself.
Yes.
So I had to keep proving myself by saving her. And that way she would love me. That was the logic I had, which many people carry. Many men carry that one.
Yes.
And it's, let me just say, short cut to the chase, it doesn't work.
No.
It didn't for me. And I did not have any, I mean, in the moment, some of the time it was great fun. Yes, it was sexy, it was great, but it never went anywhere because I didn't resolve my own issues.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, it's like, ladies, you don't look for a knight, you want to look for a king. And gentlemen, you don't look for a damsel in distress, you want to look for a queen. So let's raise the bar on both sides of the conversation.
And for me, when I was dating people that I felt like I needed to take care of them, I needed to rescue them, I was going to help those guys figure out how to get money in their life and have a savings account. I was really determined because when I learned later that I didn't feel worthy of having a man that already had money in his life. And I thought, wow, that was so obvious out here, but not internally until I figured that out. Because at least I felt like I could contribute this, if I don't think that they'll think I'm smart enough about other things, at least I'm really smart about this. Yeah. And to think, as much as I know, as smart as I am about a lot of things, and there's things I want to learn about and don't know anything about, the guy in my life is going to think all of that's just fine. I was the one who didn't think it was fine.
There you go.
Started with me not feeling worthy, not feeling enough of whatever, fill in the blank of what all the things we think we're not enough, smart enough, tall enough, skinny enough.
The list goes on.
Money enough, things enough. Yes. That when you're not feeling enough, that's what you're waiting for somebody else to come make you feel enough.
Yeah.
It's so important to acknowledge where you might not be feeling enough about.
And just as another nail in the coffin, so to speak.
We're going to go there. We're the real talker people. That's what we do.
Right. So when you're in the place where you don't feel enough, looking for somebody else to fill up that part of you that doesn't feel enough is impossible, because that not enoughness is like having a cup with a hole in the bottom.
Yes.
So the more they pour it their, whatever it is, love, affection, worthiness, deserving, into your cup, the more it pours out the bottom. So it's like, it never fills you up. So you don't get benefit from it. The only way to really come to a place of wholeness, figuratively, literally, emotionally, so you can be in a relationship with that person, is to fill up your own cup, which means you end up having to seal your own cup first, so it can actually contain your own self-worth. And most of that, frankly, is a remembering process, not a filling up process. It's more about knowing who you really are anyway, because you never were unworthy in the first place.
No.
You just believed you weren't.
It is such truth that it's belief.
Yeah.
It's what you were told when you were growing up. It's the way you interpreted what people said, whether they meant it negatively or not, which a lot of times they didn't. And it came out that way. And it's the way we interpret it because we have no filtering when we're kids.
Right.
And then we just keep perpetuating it throughout our friends and our romantic relationships. And that hole never gets filled. And I tell people too that if you keep being attracted to people that they think they're not enough, know that they have a hole in their bucket too.
Oh, yeah.
So both of you are just piling stuff out, no matter if you're both trying to rescue the other person, and it's never going to fill you up. And the other thing is, if you don't believe fill in the enough, it won't matter how much somebody tells you. I think I've said it on this. I know I've said it on other things, that I did have some people, quite a few people in my life who would tell me positive things when I was growing up. And I'd go, yeah, that's nice. And thanks. And I'd believe them. I wouldn't internalize it, but have somebody poke at one of those things that I knew I was not enough of, I would take it on and wear the mantle and march around and defend their right to tell me that I had all these things wrong with me.
Oh, yeah.
So to pay attention to what are the things that you're believing in your mind and coming from other people. What are the things that are hot spots? What are the things that set you off of, gosh, I'm so jealous of this person because they have that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a real good indicator of where you're not feeling enough or you're feeling lacking, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's if you're back to what you said earlier about the fact when, if the other person's got a hole in their cup and you've got a hole in your cup, you're trying to fill up each other constantly. That's so exhausting. And so, and the thing about it is it is so much easier to fill up our own cups. But I agree with you. I mean, my upbringing was the same way, where even if somebody said something nice to me, my reflex was to say, but if you knew me, you wouldn't believe that. Yeah. So I immediately would sabotage any compliment coming in my way.
Yeah.
It wasn't I was necessarily raised intentionally that way, but I remember things happening in my life that I didn't. I mean, part of it's like, there's something about the stoic British upbringing coming from a Jewish family. There was also like, there was the thing about you could do better, you could do better, you could do better. So better was never enough. And so there was definitely a reflection of that internally was, I'm not worthy of it because I can never achieve whatever that was. Because it was never, the other thing was that thing was never clarified clear enough so I even saw what it was, so I can never get there.
Yeah.
And so many kids deal with that, and both boys and girls, that the achievable goal they're going for, they're not clear what it is, either because they don't have one themselves or they're told some amorphous thing that they end up in the struggle of always constantly trying to be something they're not.
Yes.
Rather than simply learning that where they are is perfectly fine to be whole.
Yes. 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 Because that's such a big piece too. Because yes, there are places where we could learn more. We could do more. And there's lots of places we're just fine. We're truly just fine. I've said I'm a bad speller. I've worked at it. I've tried. My mom was such a good speller, and my brother and sister and I are just bad spellers. And I used to think that made me a bad person. How sad is that? I'm sorry, I just don't have the gene. And it's really hard to look things up because if you don't know how to spell, dictionaries,
right? Yeah.
Pain in the ass. Totally not. Dictionaries were not my thing. Electronic stuff, because it kind of gets me close, because I can tell you when it's right when I see it. I just can't tell you how to do it without seeing it.
Right.
So I've decided I'm perfectly enough, even though I don't know how to spell very well. And I have an editor that's a wonderful speller, so she fixes all of that. And I just apologize to people. And it is really amazing because, I'll try to text something and I'm like, I am just going to change the word because I can't figure out how to spell it and Google's not helping. And I'm just, it really is kind of funny to live in my body when it comes to spelling. But I've really come to just think it's one of my charming idiosyncrasies. And that whoever's going to be in my life in an intimate way, really close friend or a lover, they have to think that idiosyncrasy is charming too. If they're going to ever make fun of me or think it's bad or that I'm not enough, they're not the right person because I don't believe that anymore. Right. I used to believe it, and I would let people in my life that would give me a hard time about. No more. Right. And that's such an innocuous thing, spelling. Yeah. It was a big thing to me.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter how big or small that thing is, the internalization of it's still the same effect.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, again, what I said earlier, which you said yes to, which I want to really come underscore again, is if we simply relax into knowing that we're worthy and deserving, period.
Yeah.
So anything we do go for is additive.
Yeah.
Nothing we are going to do or transform or change is going to make us any more worthy or more deserving or more whole. What it's going to do, though, is help us see things more clearly and maybe add more skills to more arrows to our quiver, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and also, yes, some things it's not so much impossible to change, but not worth the effort to change, ultimately. It's something you can just say, that's the way it is. Because again, none of that affects how deserving, worthy, and whole you really are.
Yeah.
Except we think it is. And that's the challenge we do. We wire ourselves up going, but if I could do this, I would be whole. It's like, no, if you do this, you could do this. You already are whole.
Yes, and better's okay.
Yeah.
Because we're not broken. That's what people say. They think they're going to come to us and we're going to point out all the things that are broken. What I do is I point out all the things that are already just fine.
Mm-hmm.
They're just fine. I think you might not be believing them. I think that could be a little bit of a problem. The things that I'll go, well, I see this in you. And they're like, really? I go, well, yeah. I mean, this is what you've said. And this is what I've seen. I mean, evidence. And they're amazed because they don't see it.
Right.
And isn't that sad?
I mean, as much as I love my work, sometimes when I see clients and they get what I see as their reality, their truth, and they finally go, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
It's like, it's wonderfully warming at the same time and going, I wish I'd seen it years ago. That's the quandary side of me. And I'm like, fine. I don't mind because one, they're there now, and two, I'm getting paid for it, which is nice.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if we all had that opportunity in our upbringing, in our journeys, to be reminded of our wholeness from all the way up, we would change our society.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. Yes. Oh, well, you have said a mouthful there.
It comes through sometimes.
What I tell people is that I know that there's times I know I believe it and they don't. My job is to hold the belief.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to go do what I've suggested, even if you don't believe it. You don't even have to believe it. Just go try.
Yeah.
Go try something. So I was having a chat with somebody this morning, a client, and she was saying she's really concerned that she's going to sabotage this relationship. And we really went through what were the reasons? What was the reason that she thought it wasn't a worthwhile relationship? And she discovered she was making it all up in her head. And what she was doing, which a lot of women do, was what he would say she wouldn't believe. And he has proven since November to be really a man of his word. He hasn't changed anything he said. He's been very consistent. So I said, I know that you don't believe you can do this, and I believe you do. So until the end of March, you have a moratorium on changing what he says. You have to take everything he says at face value. And every time you try to change it in your head, she's got Post-its everywhere that say stop. Great big letters. And she said, I don't have to believe it'll work. I said, no, you really don't.
Right.
You just have to commit to doing it until the end of March. So she did it. She's going to do that today. She promises she's going to hit her on the front of her journal. She's going to put it as a screensaver on her phone. And I said, for a woman especially, it is a very, very hard habit to break. Right. Because it's a habit. Because often we women don't say what we mean.
Oh, yes.
So we assume that you're not saying what you mean as men. And most of the time, I'd say high 90%, if he's a good guy, what he's saying is what he means. But we don't believe you because you don't tell the truth. I mean, isn't that sad? So
there's so much in that, yes.
Here's the perfect example of that. So because she's going to practice, I know she'll believe it. And part of her belief that we've been working on, which is why she's had this lovely man show up, is that she knows she deserves this man. She's just got this old habit in her brain.
Right.
Isn't that fun to hear?
I love the way you've done it because it's such a great, simple technique because it's really having her believe in your belief.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what our work is a lot of times, is we hold the space. I mean, it's funny, in my bio, I've had over 20 years as a spiritual counselor through my spiritual center. And part of what we do with our clients in that setting, which is different from when I'm coaching, well, that's still, I'm realizing more and more, it's like, oh, it fits together. Of course, I'm joking, but yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is to have that space where when I'm working with my client, I already know for them the truth, that they are whole, they are complete. That's what we're talking about, this worthiness thing. Yeah. In the prayer work and even just in the conversation, my intention and my whole space holding is seeing where they already are.
Yep.
But then watching them catch up to it.
Yes.
And so the joy of this work is not so much as about being found to be right, but affirming, confirming what I know that they're worthy of.
Yeah.
Because they already are worthy. They just forgot.
Yeah. Yes. The
So back to that piece again. Yes, the forgetting. So back to the title for a second, is that waiting for love is a waste of time, is that we have a lot of things where we don't, in the moment, especially when we're single, focus on being worthy and remembering our truth, remembering our deservedness. Because almost like some of the way we're wired because of our society's rules and the way that the American dream and everything else is, and other countries too, is that we will only be perfect when we have the family. So there's this structure about, when you're married, you have the kids, then you're complete. Especially for women, this one more than men, I think, nowadays, and all the women have been evolving as well, thankfully, the last several years. Is that you are actually whole and complete, and then if you want to have a partner and a family, but the old paradigm still pervades through everything, which is if you're not already in a relationship, you're an outsider, or you're not worthy, or whatever that is. Right. Thankfully, most people aren't agreeing with that anymore, but it still is underneath the surface for many of us.
Yes.
And so that recognition that we can be a full, whole, deserving, worthy person because we already are, and then a relationship can happen totally independent of that, is a game changer for many people.
Oh, and it's like I really do believe that there's an old memory of knowing that, and to bring it back up to the forefront. I find that because they trust me to hold the belief, so they're a little more relaxed about the resistance is still there, but it's not quite as strong.
Yes.
And so when it kind of gets back in there, they're like, oh, I knew that. I just forgot. Oh, isn't it just glorious to watch?
Well, it doesn't have to be a revelation, although it can be for some people who've got so much stuff laid on top of that old belief that is the one where there's some judgment and blame and guilt and all stuff from other people. And we did cover the both blame, guilt, resentment, and shame over the last few weeks, so you can go watch those replays if you want to. But when you understand that stuff is laid on top of the truth, all we're doing is basically pulling stuff back to go, oh, there's the truth. I'm already worthy.
It does. It gets covered up with all the
stuff
that's so not true.
Right.
The untruths. And we're living as if they're the truth.
Yeah.
By waiting for somebody to come and tell us the truth, or uncover the truth, or confirm the truth, or when we know the truth, we just don't know we know it. And that when we acknowledge it, then the person who will go, yes, I see your truth, and here's my truth. Because the other thing I found is yes, Sammy says, oh, we're on video, so I have to do it.
I saw him sneaking up.
Yes. That if you haven't uncovered your truth, you're going to believe somebody else's truth that might not be good for you on top of all that.
Yeah.
And how bad is that?
Like layers and layers. So it's definitely the more, especially, and again, when you're single is the best time to do this because you don't have to worry about other people's stuff falling on top of your own.
I know.
Stuff.
Earthquake kitty.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about what to do about all this stuff that's layered on top of your, hopefully you do have a belief and we'll help you uncover it, that you really are lovable and that you don't need somebody else's confirmation about it when we come back from our break.
See you after the break.
Yep. You're so funny.
I'm back.
Talking about how waiting for someone else to love you is a waste of time.
Yeah.
Yes. How can you learn to love yourself? I mean, that is such a pivotal question in so many people's lives, because they can come up with lots of reasons not to think they're lovable and not to love themselves.
And one of the biggest lessons, or one of the biggest gifts, is that you're way more attractive when you love yourself to somebody you may want to meet, which is the other side of this thing, which I was like, oh, hang on, we should look about that part too.
Yeah.
Is that being in a place where you're feeling incomplete or like you got a piece missing. I was thinking of The Missing Piece by Shel
Crow?
No, there's a kid's book called The Missing Piece by Shel Silverstein.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Anyway,
Hoops books. I met him at an author thing once. He's adorable.
That book, though, is a great one too, because it's about the whole thing is that we keep thinking that we're not going to be whole to be in a relationship. And I've talked this many times before. It's in my book and it's in my coaching. And I talked about it actually last night. I was on a teaching class about how we have this paradigm where we think that relationships are 50-50, like we're incomplete. And when we get to the other person, we'll be whole together. Yeah. It's like, no, we are whole already.
Yes.
So a relationship is not 50-50, it's 100-100.
Yes.
Which is much more fun and much more joyful.
Yes.
And the side effect, again, being whole and being loving of yourself and taking care of yourself. I've seen women when they do this work, and frankly, it's one of my favorite things. When I see women who've done this work where they are loving themselves and owning who they are, not out of ego, but out of compassion and care.
Yes.
They're some of the most attractive women I've ever met.
I know.
So, and men can do the same thing, because the other thing for us men is that we aren't trained to do that. We're trained to think that we're okay. So we tough it out. We make ourselves like, I'm strong and can make it happen and be confident. But the reality is that little kid inside is still wounded and hurt. So women who, especially if they've done their own inner work, they can see this guy looks tough, but looks like a shell because they can see the wounded inside. So for us men, learning to love ourselves, meaning that we love the child in who we are and we love who we've become as a below the neck focus versus above the neck, so to speak. Yeah. We become more attracted to women too, because the biggest thing is when you are loving yourself, you're not coming from a needy, hungry, clawing type place, which is what people don't want to be around.
Not.
Yeah, let me qualify that.
Yeah, because I'll hear women say, look at that woman who, whatever her body style is, the person that's talking to me feels really critical of that body. What is she doing with that guy? And I said, look how she walks. Look how she carries herself. Look at her eyes sparkle. Look at she feels whole and complete, no matter how the world thinks she should look differently. Right. She's fine with how she looks. And so when you're fine with who you are, how you look, how you think, how you act, that you've really, really done your work, the world's like, wow, let me come be part of that. And that's when you get to be the Tai Chi person of, no, you need to do a little more work. Please go by. Oh, yes, please come forward, because I can tell you've done your work and you are becoming a whole person, that you like yourself in lots of ways. And I really want to say it again, because you've said it a couple of times. It's so important. It's not arrogance at all.
No.
It's self-assuredness. Mm-hmm. It's self-confidence in the most glorious, healthy, standing on firm foundation way.
Yeah.
And the way that you do that is to first acknowledge, well, where am I feeling lacking? Mm-hmm. Where do I think that came from? And how do I undo it? I mean, doesn't that sound so simplistic? Like, oh, snap.
Oh, yeah, snap. Exactly. No, when I was on this call last night, I was talking about this and said that what I really, in a way, I'm almost really finding my work, because I've been a relationship coach for 13, 14 years. But really what I'm becoming more and more is a self-relationship coach first, then relationship. Because the thing is, when you talk about relationship coach, they go, oh, do you work with couples? I'm like, no, that's not the focus. I help singles become whole. I should say, again, singles remember their wholeness.
Yes.
So then they can attract the relationship they want. So most of the work I do is not helping them go on dates. That's the last part of the work I do. The first part is to get to a place where they're actually in their own space again, owning their truth, their wholeness, their self-confidence in a place of real deep inner work. So when they do meet somebody, there's no shakiness from the place of being, am I worthy of it? It's like, I'm worthy of whatever I want. And is this person worthy to come play with me? Again, not from ego, but from truth.
Yes. I know when I say that to both men and women, are they worthy of you? They're so shocked.
Oh.
Because we're always thinking, I'm not worthy of them. Not am I worthy? I don't even hear people say that very much. Mostly I hear, I am not worthy. What would make me worthy? Well, if you don't think you are, then you aren't.
Right.
So let's get you thinking that you are. That's really the important thing. What is it that you're not feeling worthy about? Okay, that's pretty normal and human. Then what do you do about it?
Right.
So like this woman who has had a history of sabotaging. I've only listened about past relationships. This is the first one we've worked on together. What things she did to sabotage and what maybe as this could be big major misunderstandings.
Yeah.
To say, well, that hasn't been working. How are we going to do this differently? And what are you going to do differently in yourself? So she's not going to play that tape. She's not going to play the tape of, well, what does he really mean for till March? So looking at what it is that's been in your face. I think I need to lose 10 pounds or 20 pounds before I can even put myself on online dating, or that somebody would like me, or I could get naked with somebody. Both men and women, not as many, but more women. That what you first, and they all are shocked when I say this, I need you to feel good about you right now.
Yeah.
Whatever weight you are, we're going to get you feeling, and they don't believe me. And I go, that's I believe me. I know this is really going to help. If we can get you to feel good today, not today, but in this body that you're feeling today.
Yeah.
Not only are you going to feel more self-confident and happier, and people will notice that. An interesting offshoot is if you think you really do want to have less weight on your body, it will start leaving because you'll say, I have more energy. I think I'll go for a walk. You don't have to go for a walk. You're not making yourself go for a walk. You're feeling energized and you look outside and you're like, oh, I think I want to go outside. Not for any other reason, because you're feeling better.
Right.
You're fine moving in your body, and you're fine being in your body outside in front of other people. Oh my God. Because when you don't like your body, you stay all hibernated. And that just holds the weight on, or puts more weight on, if we're just talking about the weight part, because there's so many other things that people themselves about. But in just this way, to see, oh, wow, accepting how I am, who I am right now, it's such a hard thing to do. It's challenge. It's not hard. It's challenging work. You have to be really committed to doing it. You have to see that I believe it. Barry believes it. You can get to the other side, because what's so magic is it happens pretty quick. If you really commit to this, you'll start seeing the benefits and you're like, okay, bring it on. Give me the next.
It accelerates. Yeah. I mean, so one of the things you said earlier, I was talking about, this worthiness piece, like, you'll be worthy, worth is not based upon the car you drive, the house you live in, the job you have, as you mentioned earlier. And it's also not based upon how much weight you wear. So that's one thing. The worthiness is not tied to your appearance, because again, that's a false premise. That's a societal image that is not reality. All those images out there are meant to sell you stuff you don't need. So let's forget that for a moment. But I'm not sure. I think I talked about it here before about how we internally have a mental, emotional level, physical, mental, and emotional balance that we carry inside ourselves. So especially with weight as the great model, it's so easy to see, literally. Yeah. Is that we have this it's like a set of scales, so to speak, where basically you have a central median, and on each side there's a positive and negative on physical, mental, and emotional tied together. So if any one of those changes, the other two were going to be out of balance because they're not lined up. So if you do go on a diet and lose 25 pounds of weight, you may be thinking that's the way to be freedom. The fun part is, which is what you and I specialize in, is the 25 pounds worth of mental and emotional energy that's tied into that physical weight comes out to be worked on, comes out to be released, comes out to be made peace with. And if you don't do the work to heal it, what tends to happen is the weight will come back, because it's got to be in balance. This whole pendulum swing has got to be in balance. So learning that when you want to do something to change one area of your life, know that it's good to get someone to walk with you through that process who's got some skills like you or I. So then when you're going there, all the other stuff that shows up, you go, What about this? And you go, I can help you with that.
Yeah.
You know, we're not weight coaches, but we are emotional baggage coaches, which is tied to that weight. So we can help people in that area. And so relationships, same thing is true, is that we choose relationships that tend to match the baggage we're carrying. Not intentionally. None of us go, I know I need to have a relationship that makes me feel bad. None of us do that. But we do have this programming inside, almost like we have this part of ourselves that's behind our eyes with a little ticket going, looking for a match for this ticket. Can I get to this destination, please?
Yes.
And it's that wiring we carry. So it's really comes down to, again, before you get into a relationship, because you don't want to wait for the love to show up, is to look at yourself honestly, internally, and say, where do I want to shift and change things so I can remember my wholeness, again, remember, and really come to a place where I can be healthy in my values to attract what I really want.
Yep. Oh, yes. Period. Exclamation.
All right, see you next week.
Bolded, bright neon colors, a floodlight on it. Yeah. Because we know, because we've been through this personally. I mean, that's the thing. When people learn to trust and believe us, it's because I've done this walk. I've been down this road, which is why I know it will work, which is why I know how you'll feel afterwards, because I felt it. I've been in the dregs of I'm not good enough. And I had a long list of the things I wasn't good at and attracted lots of people around me to keep confirming it and re-energizing it in me. And when I learned all the things inside of me that were perfectly enough, it was very freeing. And those people dropped away that wanted to perpetuate it. That was really
just like that.
One of the best gifts, I have to tell you. The gift of feeling whole was amazing. And the people that were pushing me to not feel whole being gone is wonderful.
Well, that's a word of warning I need to offer too, because I've been through this myself, is that when we start to have transformation experiences where we change who we are and what our value system is, we tend to change our relationships out there as well, not just romantic ones, but the people around us. So those people who have been not necessarily supporting us in our direction where we're going will either completely disappear or will change their tune because they realize they were not aligned to that in the same way anymore. Because also, if they do start doing that, you'll walk away because you're just going, this doesn't support me.
Yeah.
That's why relationships sometimes end when a person grows too. That's a different topic.
I was going to say, boy, the main thing that happens when you change to the people around you could be a whole nother talk.
Couldn't it just? I've been through that many times in my journey.
Oh, hasn't it? And it's guaranteed. I mean, it is one of the things you need to be aware of. And it's best that if they're going to leave, they'll go find more people that play in the same pool they do. And you will find people.
Exactly.
Yeah. And sometimes it's very sad. I mean, I've had that happen in my family, and I just have so much more energy and so much more time and so many more people in my life that are the kind of right people for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It is, and that's one of the things that's challenging for some people. I mean, I'm grateful because I've traveled a lot. I mean, having lived in 4 countries and having been around different people, I've learned to be less attached to certain people in my life, like family.
Yeah.
I love them dearly, but I don't need to be around them that much. And the fact that we live in 3 different countries makes it easier in some ways.
Wow.
Well, my brother and his family in Italy, my main family's in England, I'm over here. Plus, we've got other family in Denmark too, so that's 4 countries. Okay, 4 countries.
Wow.
But the thing is, in that process, even the friendships I've had over the years have fallen away because of the work that we've done is pulled in different directions. Now, for some people, I know that maybe you are living in the same town you grew up in. You were born and raised in the same town. And actually, that's funny enough, it's one of my dating criteria I definitely care about, is I need to be with somebody who's traveled or doesn't live anywhere near where they grew up.
Yeah.
Because that's my life. So that's another thing, by the way, looking for matches on a criteria, be what are you looking for? So, but if you're somebody who's been in the same town where you were born and raised, doing a job in the same company maybe your father or your mother had worked in, just be aware that if you start growing, that might become uncomfortable.
For you,
doesn't fit you anymore. Yes, because you don't fit there anymore.
No.
You've changed.
Yeah.
So
yes,
that's the price of this work, by the way. I should warn people about that.
Yeah, and I warn people you know, that's probably going to happen, and it usually is fine. It's fine enough.
Well, when you get yourself back and you start to really understand who you really are, the deservedness, the worthiness, and all those other things, you're realizing the price is so much worth it because you're going, this is so much better than if I stay where I was.
Yeah. Yep. Figuring out how to love yourself and think you're enough. I would think there's hardly anything that's not worth that.
I'm on the same page with that one. I mean, it's been doing this for 35 years. I guess I could say yes.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Same amount of time.
Yes.
Okay, so my goodness, I bet we might have touched on some soft places. Are you waiting for somebody
just a little bit?
love you so that you'll feel more lovable? My goodness, maybe. So please reach out to Barry or I. And the way to get a hold of me is one of the best ways is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com, and click on what's holding you back from love, so we can have a chat about it. And it's complimentary. We'll see if I can be of help for you. I really want to hear what's been holding you back from finding the love of your life. You could send me an email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. You can also reach me on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest and YouTube. And did I say them all? Instagram. See,
there we go. I knew it was one. Yes.
I always leave one off, but I always have you to look out for me, Barry. I appreciate it.
Of course, my service.
And Barry, please tell them how to reach you.
So the same as Christine offers, I do offer a complimentary conversation as well. So if you go to my website, which is my name, barryselby.com, the first offering on the navigation bar is an icon that says "Let's Chat." Click on that and sign up for a discovery session. My gift to you: we'll discover first of all, I help you see where you are and what you're looking for, and if we want to work together. Because what I'm very clear with my clients is we want to work with each other. If you want to work with me and I don't feel I'm ready to work with you, that's honest, and the other way around is too. So that's why we do this conversation, to have a gift to verify that we want to work together. So for both of us, we do that. On my website, there's also other things, my best-selling book, my signature course, coaching, all the other things as well. You can definitely drop me an email as well, although through a website, it's just easier because there's a form you fill out, which makes it easier for me to know what's going on with you.
Yeah.
An email can be less effective that way. But you can email me at barryselby.com. And social media, I'm basically on every platform. There's a couple of caveats I want to clarify this. So definitely on YouTube, find me at Barry Selby, Pinterest, Twitter, LinkedIn is all that. On Facebook, you can find my business page, which is barryselby.author. And on Instagram, it's The Real Barry Selby, because somebody stole my ID a long time ago. So The Real Barry Selby on Instagram. So that's where you can find me. And that's about everywhere you can find me.
Well, they only want to talk to the real Barry Selby.
That's why I claimed it.
I love it. Well, thank you all for listening, and appreciate the people that write in comments and questions. We really like that a lot.
Absolutely.
We get people. And we'll be back next Thursday with another scintillating, interesting conversation about dating.
We will indeed. 4 o'clock Pacific time, 4 o'clock East Coast time, 1 p.m. Pacific time.
Thank you, Barry. See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.